Welcome to Lesson 9B of Youth by Isaac Asimov. Today we are going to be learning how to create an effective summary, and we know we will be successful if we can create a storyboard showing our understanding of the events thus far, and we can find quotations to prove the events took place. Now, today's lesson is on a really important skill that you can use not just for this topic, but in your real life as well. This is not one of those times where you can complain and go, well, when am I ever going to use this in real life? There will be plenty of times in your real life where you need to summarize a story or a large piece of writing to someone else. It happens all the time, and you already do it all the time. I just want to make sure we're doing it in the most useful way possible, or a way that's very practical and very simple. And this is just more about a way that I find really helpful for aiding my memory and my recall when it comes to stories. So books are huge, novels are huge. This is a short story, and it's not the longest short story ever, but it is still quite a lot of information to remember. I'm sure if I reposted the very first quiz again and you didn't revise and you didn't look over anything, you might struggle to remember some of the events that took place in the first chapter, because books contain a lot of information, there's a lot of writing. But if I gave you a summary of all of the chapters we've read so far, a shortened down condensed version, ask you to reread them, you wouldn't have any trouble with that, and it would be much quicker than asking you to just read the entire short story again. So summaries can be incredibly useful. Summaries are used in television. If you have ever watched a long-running drama series, often they start with previously, and I think 24 was the first one to make this really popular, which is why a lot of TV shows later used previously on 24 as sort of a meme, kind of the voice, they were mimicking the voice of that one. But loads of TV shows use it because if the story gets complicated, you might not remember by next week what happened on the previous episode. Now, obviously, this doesn't happen so much to people now that we have things like Netflix where you tend to just binge watch all the episodes. But serial television, you still need a summary of what happened on last week's episode so that you know what's happening in this week's episode and you know why the events are important. There are whole businesses dedicated to summary. So CliffsNotes is one of the most famous. CliffsNotes is a website where they just take stories and they explain quickly what they're about. So you can, if you need to know about what a story is about for, say, a topic, and you just want a little bit of information, you can go to CliffsNotes. Now, I knew people at university that would use CliffsNotes instead of reading an entire novel, and they would usually embarrass themselves at some point by mistakenly referring to one character as another character because they hadn't read the whole thing. But these can be extremely useful resources to find out a little bit about something that you're confused about, to remind yourself of something that you're not sure on. There's also, I found out, a new app called Blinkist, which is a really bizarre app that's advertised everywhere at the moment, where they are shortening books, they are summarising books into 15-minute podcasts, so an entire book in 15 minutes. But it's non-fiction, so it's autobiographies or textbooks that they're shortening into 15-minute audiobooks, which I think is amazing, and I might have to look into it a bit more to see if it's any good, because I can't really comprehend how that would be of much use. When we think about summarising, because we don't run podcast-based, audiobook-based summary apps, we tend to use bullet points. And bullet points are extremely useful because it's all about writing in as few words as possible the information that you need to get. So we should all be relatively familiar with the old summarize this in X number of bullet points, which should give you a little bit of a hint about what I'm going to ask you to do next, because I'm going to ask you to write a 10 bullet point summary of the story so far. So have a think about everything all the way from chapter 1 running forwards. Now, if you get stuck, I would recommend just rereading over a couple of the shorter chapters, skim read it, maybe go back and listen to a couple of the videos, part A's, and listen to a few of the chapters if you can't remember. But you should be able to remember the major events, the things that stand out. But I want you to go back now, pause the video, and create a 10 bullet point summary of all of the major events in the story so far. So just take a minute to do that. Okay, so if you remember in the success criteria I talked about storyboarding. This is again something that you should all be familiar with because it's often something used at primary schools. And I know when you're at primary school, well, when you move up to high school, you tend to think, well, I'm not going to use that stuff that I used at primary school. That was for little tiny children. But some of the skills you learn at primary school are extremely useful, and storyboarding is one of them. It might just be the way my brain works, but I find storyboarding so helpful in helping me remember what happened in a story because my brain can just remember the pictures really well. So storyboarding can be fantastically helpful in creating a memorable summary. So what I'd like you to do now is create a storyboard showing all the major events which have occurred so far and add quotations underneath. Now, part of the reason I think this is fun is you get to draw, even if you're not good at drawing, which I'm not, you get to spend a bit of time drawing out the characters, drawing out the events and creating a visual version of the story, and that can be quite appealing. Drawing can be fun even if you're bad at it. I really enjoyed drawing this terrible picture because I thought the little alien in the crashed spaceship was really funny and I had a giggle over that. It doesn't have to be good, it just has to be a visual representation of what has happened in the story. So I'd like you now just pause the video and create a storyboard showing all the major events. You can use your 10 bullet point summary or you can choose some different ones, but all the major events, and then after that I want you to add quotations underneath. So here you can see mine is Slim rose resentfully. At the moment the circus appeared a rather tawdry and shoddy substitute for the glories of astronomy. That's my picture that I've used to summarise that quotation. So that's that event, is when they've gone and they've looked at the spaceship and they're walking away and Slim is questioning his choices. So pause the video and give that a go now. Okay, so we've made it to the end of the lesson, and our learning intention today was to create an effective summary. So we know we've been successful because we've created a storyboard showing our understanding of the events so far and found quotations from the text to prove that the events took place. This is a really effective way of summarising a story, and it should help make this story more memorable. So that's the end of the lesson. Good work, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!